I'll start with you, Adam. 0.3% today in the March quarter, better than other countries. 9.8% in China. It's a downward slump, 5.3% down in China. Does that mean we're likely to come out of this more quickly than other countries, provided we do what we should be doing, and it's opening up the economy?
Well, look, not necessarily, but of course our shutdown restrictions started a bit later than in other countries, so you might expect that in that first quarter we did relatively well. We were the best in the OECD, I believe, except for Sweden. Look, that said, I'm still optimistic that we have lifted the restrictions this quarter sooner than we first thought. We saw the Reserve Bank Governor this week say that he's more or less of the same view, that it's not going to be quite as bad as first thought. And so we just have to hope that those projections of a 9% drop in this quarter, so 30 times what we saw in the first quarter, won't actually come to fruition. But look, it's very hard to say for certain.
What's it feel like out there in the markets and the business community? Is there any confidence left there when you see those numbers that it's come in? I have to say, if you look at, bushfires and everything else at the top of the year, Peter, better than perhaps the government might have hoped. We know it'll be tough in the next quarter. But do you think there's enough sort of confidence in the economy that we really can come out of this better than we thought?
Well, I'd like to say yes, Peter. And if you look at the ANZ Roy Morgan consumer confidence number, it's gone up 9 months in a row. And that's a really good sign. I think what I'm seeing in the CBD of Sydney is it's been very, very slow for people to get back into the offices. And I think that worries me a little bit. I've got to say, today I actually walked through Australia Square near the old Stock Exchange building, and there was actually a lot more people. People were actually having beers at the bar there. So that's a good sign. But I have talked to a CEO of a major company, and he actually said to me, I've done a survey with our company. It's a pretty big workforce as well. And he said 90% of his employees want to work from home in the future. Now, that really worries me a little bit.
I'll come back to you on that. I want to ask you, Adam, is it as simple getting things back up and going? We talked to Andrew Stone at the top of the show. Because we went so hard to shut down, if we were to go just as hard to open up, put the health considerations to one side, but we haven't got much community transmission at all in Australia. What we're seeing in numbers are people returning from Australia. If we were to do that, get things back on track, is it just as simple as opening up completely? If we open up completely tomorrow or the next day, how quickly do you think things would rebound?
Well, certainly I would favour that policy, but sadly it's not symmetrical. There is no way they would rebound as quickly as they shut down because, of course, during these weeks that they've been shut down, household and business balance sheets have been so impaired, and so people will be a lot more reluctant to spend even if we did suddenly open everything up. And sadly, that tendency, that mindset, if you like, of uncertainty, I think is going to last for many, many months. And I think it will be reflected both in confidence statistics, in retail spending, and also there'll be a great increase in saving. We saw the saving ratio jumped in the latest set of national accounts. I'm sure it's going to jump much, much more than that in the second quarter, and those habits are going to last. So look, I think the coming down of unemployment is going to be a slow process. I hope it's on the fast side, but certainly if you go back to the early 90s, it took about 6 or 7 years to get back to the pre-recession unemployment level.
Yeah.
Peter, just that point about working from home, I think you're right. I think certainly anecdotally for me, everyone I'm speaking to wants at least 1 or 2 days a fortnight working from home, more if they can get it. Is this going to be the new normal, and what does it do to commercial property prices? What does it do to all those restaurants, cafes, sandwich bars or whatever in our big cities?
Yeah, I got to say, I hope I'm wrong, but I think it's going to take some time to get people back to a normal situation. But there are going to be a lot of bosses thinking, I'm paying $1 million a year in rent. If half my workforce want to work from home, let them do it, and I might be able to cut my rent down to by $500,000. And I think that's going to be an issue. What I found interesting, the company I'm talking about is an IT company, so a lot of their workers are younger people without children. My survey is all the guys and women I know who've had kids at home and trying to work, they're really desperate to get back to the office. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, this will be the dividing line, I suspect. Adam, RBA, yesterday obviously the rates were kept on hold, 0.25%. There is talk now, if you look at the notes and the speeches recently by the Governor and comments by the Governor, that the rates could stay low until 2023. Now, What's the argument for keeping them as low, and is this some good news finally for mortgage holders?
Well, look, he's probably right. Certainly if you look at Japan, which was the first down this path of zero rates, their rates have been low for many, many years, 5, 10 years, maybe 15 years. So, look, I don't see a sudden increase in rates. The fact is there's been no breakout yet in inflation. And so long as that is the case, there's really no need for central banks to lift rates. That said, the governor's been very clear to say he's not interested in negative interest rates, which I think is wise. Some central banks, as you know, have gone down that path in Europe, and it's not.
Just on that, what's the argument? Tell me the argument. Tell our viewers the argument.
Negative?
Yeah, against going negative.
Well, against going negative? Well, because banks' margins. The banks are going to try to defend their margins, and of course, if they start to introduce negative rates on deposits, household deposits, then people will increasingly withdraw their money in cash and effectively keep it under the bed because the banks or the government can't impose a negative rate on your $100 bill. They just physically can't. So they don't really want to see everyone be taking their money out of the banks in cash. That would be a disaster. So there's a natural limit, if you like, on the level of interest rates. And on the deposit side, it just can't go negative.
Peter?
Well, I think Adam's right. And the bottom line is this. Look at the way we've performed. Our quarterly growth was down, an annual basis of 1.2%. USA was down 5%, UK down 7.7%, Germany 8.6%. Our economy is doing well enough to forget about negative interest rates. And even though Bill Evans, who I respect enormously at Westpac, said it might be needed, I would rather see fiscal policy being used to get this economy going and forget about ridiculous things like negative interest rates, which haven't worked anywhere they've used them.
Adam, two quick things from you. A quick comment, and I'll go to Peter as well. Do you think the JobKeeper should be kept? And are you confident the government can avoid the usual rorts if they go down the path of a construction stimulus?
No, well, just on the construction stimulus, look, I'm extremely opposed to this. I'm very, very disappointed that it seems like the government's going to throw $1 billion. Now, look, I know that doesn't sound a lot in the context of $260 billion, but it's still $1 billion, and I think the principles of good economic policy still have to hold. And to be borrowing money effectively to force taxpayers to renovate other people's houses, to keep tradesmen in work who probably earn more money than the average taxpayer anyway, is just completely bonkers. And in terms of encouraging the purchase of houses, well, the reality is population growth has slumped, so we don't need as many houses now. So the construction industry is going to have to shrink, and I think just encouraging people to buy houses, whether they're new or not, really doesn't make much rational sense. But of course, it's all about politics.